Hi there, everyone. So I'm recording this video. I did a version of this already, but something went a little weird um, on my recording. I did all of this. I talked for a little over 30-ish minutes, and for some reason, only a minute and 52 seconds actually saved. Not sure what's going on with that, so I'm just gonna redo the video right now. I'm just going to be monitoring the health of everything online because according to my end, nothing went wrong. Don't know. Thanks, YouTube. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about today is using this program called Twine. And the way that I usually set this up with my digital storytelling students is to set up kind of an interactive story environment. So normally, when presenting some kind of story, you start at the beginning, move linearly to the end. The reader or the listener or the viewer doesn't have any kind of input in what is going on. This is not the case here in Twinery. Um, Basically, this can be used for a lot of different things. A lot of storyboarding happens a lot, but it can also be used to present a story in and of itself, which I think is a great use for this. Um, if you've ever read a choose your own adventure book, this is something that, at least when I was younger, was pretty popular. Be a case of you get to the bottom of the page and you have to think, do I want to go down the dark alley here and turn to page 58, or do I want to go through the creepy door with no lights on, turn to page 73, and you get to choose and pick how you want the story to lay out. Well, Twine is an environment where you can do just that. Um, I'm just thinking a more modern context might be if anyone watches shows on Netflix. It's this cool thing where you can stream videos. But anyways, they had this show Black Mirror a few years ago came out with a video setup of this kind of format where you could pick how you wanted the story to unfold, and there'd be different kind of results or things. You sometimes see this in video games where the ending of the game will change slightly depending on your choices up to that point. You get the good ending or the bad ending, or you just game over, things like that. So that's what we'll be using this environment for. So Twine is, as it says on the screen here, an open source tool for telling interactive, non-linear stories. What does that mean? I'm going to show you. Um, but first, I do want to point out when it says open source, means anyone can use it. It's free. It's online. This is something you can download directly to your computer and run on the computer. But you can also run it online through your web browser without having to download anything, which I think is a great plus to this software. You don't have to fill up your computer with a bunch of files. I happen to have it installed, but you don't have to set it up that way. In fact, for this little series of videos, I'll actually be using it all online. So the purpose of these videos, we're just going to go over some of the more basic things that you can use to set up some surprisingly complex story setups. So this will involve a little bit of coding, but again, the point of this is for me to show you how to get through all of that, and then you can let your creativity shine through. So if you head to twinery.org, I've got a link in the description of this video. You can check it out. There's a few things just up here. Some information, some screenshots of older versions, and a few newer ones. We'll get into looking at all this in just a second. Some examples of work in this, various social media stuff. The important thing is the little post up here where you could, again, download this and install it if you want, or I'm going to click Use It Online. And that will take you to a page that's going to look something like this. All right. So I've done my best to kind of squeeze my camera out of the way, so I shouldn't be covering up anything. This is also why I want you to check this out. So the main page is going to look like this. I've turned on the dark mode. I'm going to turn on the light mode. Yours will probably look like this by default. I just think that's a little bright for staring at for a long time, so I usually end up setting most of my stuff to dark mode. If this is the first time you've ever used Twine on on your computer, you actually won't see anything up here. I've got 5 stories in the moment. So I've got one that's kind of a test for different kinds of things we'll learn later. This is one that I made in the last video that no one ever actually saw because, again, for some reason things didn't save and it was mildly annoying. Um, Again, some more test stories and things like that, trying out different things, and we'll actually walk through this one here and then make another one to wrap out the video. There's a few other things you can change how you organize these up here at the top. By the last edit date or the name. There's a few things on the side here that are also important. So I'm just going to go through them and tell you what they do. We already looked at the mode switcher for just how it displays. You notice there's a thing right underneath it that says space available. You can load in additional assets like audio and photos and video and stuff like that, but there's only a limited amount of space that it can handle per computer. So there's a point where it actually will run out. I'll talk about that in a later video. It tells you what version you're using, and if something's broken, you can report a bug. You really won't be getting into much of that, though. We'll be focusing mostly around this chunk right in the middle of the column. So this is where you click to start a new story, and we'll do that in a little bit later. I'll talk about importing from file a little bit again later. That'll be kind of where we wrap out the video working with that. Archive is where you can take all of the stories you have and essentially save them to your device, back them up, move them to other computers, share them with people, things like that. Formats, I'm going to come back to in just a second. Language, you can change the language everything is presented in. I'm going to keep mine in English just to make my life just a little bit easier, but you can change the language of that and then help and reference things. So if you're not sure how to do something, it's not covered in my videos or someone else's videos, you can look here through the online help, and they pretty much have everything that you can do in Twine, you can look into and get help on. All right, so let's go back up to formats. So this involves a little bit of coding. Now, it's nothing crazy if you've never coded before. In fact, the point of these videos is for me to show you all how to do the coding. It's nothing too crazy. It's a little bit of computer logic, and once you get into it, the formatting is not that bad. But speaking of formats, there's just a few different ways you can set this up. This isn't like coding in JavaScript or C or things like that. There's other ones as well, but this platform has a few different formats that basically just changes how it interprets different systems, the ways you format things. You can do all of the same things, it just changes slightly how it looks. For my classes that I teach, I focus on the Sugar Cube format. It's pretty flexible. There's a good amount of resources for it. It's not the only one you can use. The other kind of most common one I think is the Harlow up here. So again, you can check all of that out. But the reason I want to bring this up is, again, I'll be working in Sugar Cube version 2.34.1. So if you're working in something and something doesn't work right, or you're getting formatting problems and things like that, check your formatting on the main page and make sure it matches the same if you're trying to copy what I'm showing you in the videos. Likewise, if you're looking for help and resources online, check and make sure that the format that you're using matches what the help says, because otherwise the help is going to be pretty useless. So like I said, I click on format. I'm using Sugar Cube, and then the most recent one, the highest version number. You can add additional ones and change things up, but we don't need to worry about that for the purposes that the digital storytelling class will be using. So let's look at a story. Also, for some reason, whenever I click into that, the space available value always goes down and then goes back up. No idea why, but I've just noticed that because I've now done this video twice. But let's look at, I have my test story right here. And you'll notice that once you start adding stories, you get this kind of abstract graphic of the story. So I guess I'll just talk about this a little bit. This is representing everything that happens in the story. When we start looking at it, we'll set up different scenes, and we can set up how they connect to each other. So essentially, each of these circles is a scene, and it has different ones that whatever circle it overlaps with, it's connected to. So looking at my magic dinosaur rain boots, we have this circle here. It's connected to both of these right there, and then this large one is connected to a few more. And then we have this branch down here where they're all connected, but these don't connect over here, as opposed to something like this green one over here where a lot of things are all connected to this main circle. This one that we're going to look at where there's a lot of it kind of looks like a blob because everything's interconnected. So when we click on it, which is what I just did, it opens up the story. So you can arrange this any way you like. I tend to prefer working in a kind of a top-down format. So I put my starting at the top of my screen, and then work my way from the start to the end of my story down at the bottom. But here's the thing, you can click and drag any of these around anywhere and set them up, put them however you like. That is totally up to you, and just however you work best. All right, so basically I'm just going to go through this example story and then show you how to set up some of the basic things here. There's a few things in this environment to note. First, this home button takes you back to the last screen we were just on. You've got the file you're looking at, and a few options here. We really don't need to work with that. The main ones that might be important would be we don't need to work with editing the styles or the code of the page itself, but you can change the story format if you need to. If it was formatted differently, you can rename the story to be something else. Snap to grid, you should be able to see it, but there is a little grid in the background. You can snap to grid, and then it'll make things line up a little bit, but it'll also make so once you start moving pages, notice it's not as fluid. It's kind of moving grid by grid. You just have that, some statistics, and then there's a little line dividing some things. The other big one will be publish to file, and that's what I'm going to wrap out this video with. But we don't need to work with that there. Quick Find lets you find specific parts of your story very quickly. This is useful for big, complex ones. Working our way down the line, you can kind of search and replace things here, just like in any kind of text editing application. You can say, "Oh, I misspelled something throughout. Let me find and replace," things like that. These next three buttons are kind of zoom levels, so you can zoom way out here if it's a really big story, or if it's smaller like this one, you can zoom in and see some more info. Over here we have the test mode or the debug mode. If you click on that, it'll open up the story, and you can see everything that you might need to know. So this is the first slide says, "This is a basic example," and you see that there's a link that says click here. This way you can say, you can see if something's not working and how things are formatted. The debug mode can be useful. Hopefully we won't need to use it that much in this course. Again, I'm going to be showing you how to do most of the stuff, and it won't be anything too crazy, but if something's not working, you can look in the debug mode and see what pops up. Play just takes you through the story normally as is coded. And then add passage lets you just throw in a blank square. These are called passages right in the middle, and start using things. We'll get into that in just a second, but once you have your passage, you can delete it, edit the contents. You can say start my story, but start from this one. It can be useful if you don't need to worry about the other stuff. And then there's a few more options, mostly just sizing things, but you can also say, actually start my story from here instead. I'm going to delete this one because we don't need it. You just get a warning before you delete things, just to be sure, do you want to? So let's look at this a little graphically first before we get into the next content, like the content part of it, and actually what the person would see. So you notice the start screen. I named mine start, but there's a little kind of green arrows. That's what indicates, hey, you're starting here. Um, and then it shows a little sample of what's going on, and then it's connected by this arrow to another screen. Um, and then from that passage, I've actually got it split up so it can go to one of three. And again, the reader gets to choose which one they want, one of three other choices. Let's look at these two over here first, because these two both go to the same one down here. And then this third one goes back up to the main split. So what this is showing is that from any one passage, you can split off and link to any number of other ones that you want. You can also, from any number of passages, link back to just one specific one, and you can use that same logic to link back to a previous passage and form a loop. So theoretically, if you were going through the story, you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4 over and over again in an infinite loop. I don't recommend setting up your stories to always do that, but you could. It would work theoretically. Let's look at this one over here. I've got this first branch that has its own set of text that you're never going to see unless you specifically go down this branch. That goes down, and then this branch has its own little sub branch that either loops you back into the previous branch or ends the story. So let's actually look at this and how it goes. I'm going to say play, and we get taken to the starting slide, the first one. As it says in the slide, this is a basic example. And then you have the option to click here. When we start making these, we're essentially just programming links, and you can have the user click on them. And so you can go to multiple places. You can try it or not. I don't really care. Let's look at I don't care. So you can send multiple starting places to the same location. See, and we'll see that in a second. I actually picked a bad order just now. But if we click on this, if you remember, it's going to loop us back to this slide. You can go multiple places. So if I click on not, you can say, why don't you want to try it? See, now let's try something else. Give you a same shot. If you clicked I don't care, now we're going to be back here at this same slide that loops back. So let's try this other loop right here. You see, and this option is different from the others. It's not the same. Let's move on. So again, we keep this separate from the other little loop that we had going. And then before, we can branch off and form our own kind of sub branches. Again, you can go from one little passage, you can go anywhere, and you can go from anywhere back to a specific passage. So let's see. Let's look at option A. We get back to just C. That's its own branch. And then that loops back into this same first branch right here. So let's go back down, try it. Let's move on, keep going. And now we have option B. And option B takes us to the end of the story, which at this point is just end and then the default little passage text because I didn't put anything in there. So that's where that is. So that's what the story looks like kind of by default. Later on, we'll be adding stuff with a little more interactivity, maybe some images, just to make it a little more visually exciting. But starting off, I'd like to keep it a little simple until people just have a little more practice building all of these. One thing to note, there's a little side menu here. We don't really have to worry about saves for this point. Basically, you can save the state of different passages and check that out. It's more useful a little later on in the course. For right now, we don't have to worry about it. Restart just restarts you back to the beginning. Again, we'll talk about why it asked you if you were sure you wanted to do that when we start doing some slightly more advanced stuff, but you can just restart and go back to the top. And then from there, you can go forward and back, kind of like your browser history, just like that. And if you don't like looking at this, you can get rid of it and then bring it back if you need it. And that's essentially the basic of working with this. So let's go and make a story. Boop, back to home. Now I already made one here, but we're going to make another one just because, again, that video didn't save. So I'm going to go over here and hit the bright green add story button. Boop. You have to just name your story. You can change it to be whatever you want after the fact, but you have to give it a name to start with. Video intro story. All right. And this pops up. If you noticed, as the slide changed, it made it in that last screen, and it had one big circle in the middle representing our one starting passage. Again, I like to move mine more towards the top and generally towards the left. You can set it wherever you want, though. And let's check it out. You can double click it to open up the edit window. We have the icon, but I like to specify all of my slide passage, story sections. I may use some of these interchangeably. I just like to give them all a name. Start. The reason I like to do this is because that is how you will be linking to all of the different ones. You have to tell the code to link to a specific passage. So let's do that. I'm going to kind of make up a really, really bad story on the spot. We're going to work it out. So let's see. Hi. I am a cat. What should I do today? All right, this is going to be the premise of our story. It's going to be a cat, and the reader gets to pick what happens. So you'll notice we want to link to these other passages, but there are no more passages. We could manually add them all in with that add passage button, but that takes forever and is a pain in the butt. There's a better way. So to create a link, you hit the open and close brackets. And then you just have to type in the name of the passage that you want to put in. In this case, let's see, what do we want to have the cat do? Let's say, sleep. Sleep in. I'll just have one option for now. Sleep in. So the text that you type right here, that's going to be what is displayed in the link. Now, if I click out of this box, you'll notice that an additional passage named Sleep In has been made, and we connect to it with this arrow. So we can double click, and now we're inside of Sleep In, as you can say. One thing to note, you can give tags to specific slides. If you want to say these are all the intro slides, or this is all of, option B kind of a thing, you can specify them just to help you with organizing. This story is not going to be that complicated, so I'm not going to add them, but that is something you can do. So let's say, you're right, sleeping in sounds like a great plan. Sleep a little longer. Zoop, click out, and now we get sleep a little longer. Alright. Okay. I'm all rested now. What should I do? And at this point, this is where I'm going to branch this out into a bunch of different options. It's going to be formatted just the same way. We'll say I could, let's see, chase a mouse. Let's see. Scratch the rug. Oop, I forgot my brackets. Eat brackets. Eat some food, or use the litter box. So again, remember, all of this text will be displayed as like a sentence, but then each option in the brackets is going to appear as that blue link. So I'm going to click out, and each of those that I made has now made a different passage. So I've gone from this one option here and split it out, this time into 4 options. So let's go. Let's play around a little bit. Again, you can reorder these and move them around however you want. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. So let's see. What happens when we chase a mouse? Yes, that mouse has been bugging me for a week. I don't know how it got all that tiny furniture into the hole. Let's see. I'll point out what just happened in just a second, but let's keep going. So let's see. What happens when the cat chases the mouse? Let's see. Does the mouse get... Or let's see. Let me just rephrase the language of that. Do I get the mouse? Or does it run away? So I've now made this branch here with its own other branch. Let's say, forget the mouse. Let's say, yes. Man, that worked up an appetite. What is for lunch? Again, so I'm just adding all of these in. I have a plan for this, but what's for lunch? So I'll come back to this one right here. Let's move into eat some food. That sounds like a good plan. What is for lunch? So whenever you start typing a link to something, if you already have a passage with that same name, it will the Twinery will try to autofill that passage. So if you want to link to one that already exists, once it becomes highlighted, you just hit enter, and it will automatically fill in that code. I'm going to add the question mark. Boom. So now we see that both the get the mouse and the let's eat some food connect to what is for lunch. So because of that, I'm going to move them next to each other. So let's say I'm going to move this like that. Over here, and over there. All right. Wet food. I'm going to eat so much I get sick. Blech. The end. All right. So that'll be that ending over here. Let's see. If the mouse ran away, let's say, man, That is too bad. I really wanted to get that mouse. Guess I will have to try again tomorrow. The end. So now we have these two endings over here. I realized I had an extra A. So there we are. All right, so I've got all of that going right there. We've still got these two over here. So let's see. Using the litter box. Do you mind a little privacy, please? Thank you. Please mind your own business in the future. The end. Alright. And last but not least, scratch the rug. I need to sharpen my claws if I am ever going to chase a mouse. All right. So what I've got here is a few setups. Again, nothing too crazy. I'm going to move some stuff down. I'm going to set this up like that so we can kind of see what's going on. So we start off from the top. We just move down linearly, and then things start to branch off and get a little strange. So we can go from, depending on what you choose as the reader, how you want your story to progress. You can use the litter box, but that's kind of rude to watch. So that ends the story just right there linearly. You can choose to either go chase a mouse or scratch on the rug. But if you choose scratch the rug, you're then going to use that to go chase the mouse. So no matter which one you choose, you're going to end up right there. This then branches again, and you'll get a sad ending where the mouse runs away, or a happy ending where you catch it and get hungry. Then, if you were to click Get Hungry or go through the right Chase the Mouse options, you would end up at What's for Lunch and get sick and eat too much because you ate too much. You ate too much and get sick. So at this point, we have 1, 2, 3 different endings based off of the variety of choices. Now, none of these really loop. So I guess we can set up a loop just to show that. Try again tomorrow. Should I, let's see, do something else? Should I do something else? Let's see. Yes. Let's see. What did I name that one? Oh, that was Still Sleep a Little Longer. So what I'll say here, I could, yes. Should I, let's see, scratch the rug? Not run away. Use the litter box, or sleep in. All right. Or we can say no. Okay, I'm bored. Bye. The end. All right. So I've got that right there. So I set this one up in a bit of an interesting way. So let's just kind of move things around a little bit. So this isn't the most graphically pleasing thing to look at. Um, Maybe there that can kind of help. So if you, through your choices of story, ever end up at this do something else, by linking to specific options, we can go back to the sleeping in um, option, and then get all of the previous options before, and essentially redo everything. We can go directly to scratching on the rug, which could lead to more mouse chasing. Um, we go back to using the litter box, which ends it, or we could go into just ending the story like that. So by using these links, we can set up these wonderful progressions that are, again, non-linear. Everything is kind of fun and up to the discretion of the user. So let's just wrap up this section of the video just by going through all of that. I'm going to hit the play button. This opens it up in a new tab, and we get, "Hi, I'm a cat. What should I do today?" We're going to start by clicking on Sleep In, which takes us to the next one. We're going to sleep in just a little longer, too. Let's say, "All right, I'm all rested now. What should I do?" I could chase a mouse, scratch the rug, eat some food, or use the litter box. Again, if we click use the litter box, that ends the story. Again, we have, once your story essentially is at an ending, when there's no more links to get anywhere. You can't progress or move further, move back in the story at all. So I'm going to use the little, almost like a console command to move back here. So let's say if we wanted to eat some food, eat too much, oh no, the story ended. You can go back. Let's say we wanted to scratch the rug. I'm going to use that to catch a mouse, which takes us to the catch the mouse options. And then choose whether or not we get the mouse or it runs away. If it runs away, we're going to try it again. Should I do something else? And then we have another set of options depending on what we want. I feel like we get the idea. I'm not going to go through every possible combination, so I'm going to hit no, and then we get an ending. Boop. I'm going to close out of that. So again, here is our story. We have one starting place and 1, 2, 3 different endings that we can get to by, again, by a bunch of different paths. So we had 1, 2, 1, so branching 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That one doesn't change. Do 7, and we have about 10, between 10 and 15. The arrows overlap, making it hard to count, but between 10 and 15 different possible stories just in this one layout, which again is why this can be a very powerful tool, and all we're using is links. Don't worry, it gets better. But I'm going to wrap this section out with just this story with making a few links in our passages. So I'm going to go back to the home video, and you'll notice that now we've got this set up, and we've got, again, kind of a little graphic representation of our story. So what I'm going to kind of wrap up with is ways you can save and access your stories on different places. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is something in the browser. I have not installed anything on my computer. Well, I mean, I have, but I'm not using it. But again, this is all in the internet. Essentially, the way that this online version works is through the cookies in your browser, which is essentially little bits of data in HTML files and stuff like that that save data about what you've done on the internet, and can be used by websites. You may be the most familiar with this about like ads and things like that. They may say, "Oh, you went to a site about toasters, so next time you start seeing a bunch of ads about toasters and things like that." This is a much less annoying and nefarious use. This is just how the web page is able to save your stories without actually taking up space on your computer. It's basically able to use that data to say, hey, um, you know, this is the story. It's on this computer. Here you go. Where this becomes a problem is it becomes localized to each computer's unique IP address. So if you pulled up twinery.org on a different computer somewhere else, you would not have these computers. And actually, I think IP address is actually a little bit of a wrong information there, because I've made some of these on this computer in another location. So it's the physical hardware, not the IP. I wanted to correct myself before we moved on. So like I said, this is saved to the computer. So if I went to another computer or my laptop or something like that and tried to make a story, none of these would be here because it's a different device. Well, this can be problematic. So let's say you wanted to share a story with someone, or you wanted to back it up in case something got lost, because you can very easily delete your cookies, and this information would then get lost, and you wouldn't have any access to it. That's problematic. Um, you say you want to, again, share it. If you were doing this for a class, you'd want to turn them in, things like that. This is how we're going to do that. So if you go, you can either go in from opening the story up, or you can just do it right from the main little settings for your story. But you'll see the option of publish to file, both here and here in this little pop-up menu, publish to file. What this is going to do is turn it into a HTML file, which is essentially just some text. All right. And you notice it popped up in my downloads. I have the one I did from before here as well. Right there. So this file you can then save and back up somewhere on a hard drive or a flash drive of your computer. You can attach it and send it to people. You can turn it in if you're using something like Google Classrooms, things like that, and it will just go forward that way. It's a way you can back up your files and share them. That way, again, other people can check them out, make edits, send them back to you. It's not going to overwrite what you have on your computer. It's almost like just a copy of this file. So when I teach this course to students, that's how I have them turn things in. Is whenever they're done, they just go to publish to file. They get the file. They send me that file, and then I can check it out. It's good to go. In order to load up a file in Twinery, from this main page, you just go to import from file, and you go and find the HTML file you want to use. See, mine were in downloads. Say open. In my case, I already have this right here, because we're getting a little error because things are named differently. But basically, you just have the option to bring it in, and it will open up your other story. This one's a little more straightforward than the one we made today, but there we go. All right, that's basically everything for the basics of how to use this. How to make passages, how to link to other ones, link to multiple and previous ones to form branches and loops, giving them all names and text, pretty much everything you can do in Twinery, and exporting the files to save and back up, as well as importing them as well. So that's pretty much it for this video. In future ones, I'll be talking about ways that you can set and change different values that can impact your story and things like that. But I'm going to wrap it up for this one. It's been going on for a little while now. Hopefully I don't have that problem where things just stop working again. But we'll see when I finish the video. So that's it for this one. Everyone have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.